This is why I love Shahid Balsan. Like, oh. Hashtag walk away, hashtag pirate economy, hashtag pirate governance. Not government, governance. Hashtag pirate council. Yar! Yar, gotta get on this one. Hey, look. Oh, come back. When you've got a government operating out of a foreign territory with a citizenship, tell me they're not pirates. We're just not in the Caribbean, I guess, or are we? Maybe our citizenship is. Oh, that just fucking rattled you, didn't it? Where is your citizenship? Where is your citizenry passport? You can go to the Caribbeans, whatever you want to call it, and purchase, just like that, a cheap passport without even knowing Jeffrey Epstein. Anyway, how about pirate economy?
I've talked about this before. You need to think about, or it would be worthwhile for you to think about, as a goal or as an objective to pursue, to join BRICS. I'm not joking. I'm not being hyperbolic. I'm completely serious. So-called minority communities should try to join BRICS. I know why you think that sounds like a joke, because African Americans, right, so-called Latino Americans and whatnot, they're not a country. They don't constitute a country. Only countries can join BRICS, and you're not a country. Okay. Try to think beyond the obvious constraints, please. Don't think in terms of formal BRICS membership. Try to think in terms of how you can create a new category for BRICS recognition and BRICS cooperation. Say a BRICS affiliated community, for example, something like this, a category like this. You can think of all of the plausible criteria, like say a given diaspora community, their ancestral heritage should be from a country that either is a current member of BRICS, a current BRICS member state, or else they come from a state that would otherwise qualify to apply for BRICS membership. And there should be a demonstrable pattern of marginalization for that community. Because let's be honest, BRICS is unofficially an anti-colonial, anti-imperialist economic organization. So I'm saying you can argue that this or that diaspora community in the West exists actually as a quasi-colonized de facto global South population that's located in the West, located in America, and it's there due to historical coercion. And that this community has continues to suffer coercion within that country itself. So you're looking for economic exclusion relative to the host country's dominant population, America's dominant population. Political underrepresentation, historical colonial, neo-colonial relationships within the state, meaning exploitation, meaning discrimination.
Political underrepresentation, I would say it's taxation with zero representation. We're not represented by anything other than our taxes that we don't get the benefit of. Yeah. Why I will not. No way in a million years would I start another business with these three trades and certificates and also farming. Yod. All under this dome. I wouldn't bother. Why? BRICS is going to come out on top, we know this. Now, you can either be exploited by that, by your own government, or we can become our own pirate government. Who said you need the government's permission to? We're the only species on this planet that pays to live on it. Let that sink in for a minute. We are the only species on this planet that pays money. We have to give up our life to earn money to pay to live. Doesn't that seem retarded to you? Sure does to me. We give up our life to go to work, to earn money, to pay, to live. What's the point in living if you're just going to give it up? So that other people can do nothing and live off your efforts. Hello? McFly? You stupid? As stupid as a stupid dud thrower. Yeah, typical fucking gump. Now, you might have a store selling the finest Chinesium that money can't buy. Oh, money's buying it. It's an awful lot of stuff that just gets pumped out by AI fucking robots, isn't it? Do you really think that China has the population that we're told they have? No. People have been looking into that. The numbers don't math. The math just don't math. Think about China. They had a cap on birth rate. One child per family. Up until only recently, really, and then they took the cap off it. And all of a sudden, bam, they've got, was it something like a third of the world's population in one country? Do you believe that for a second? I don't. I think AI has been building shit for a lot longer than what we realise. Who's putting the strings on the SX guitars? It's about it. When you look at them, there's no hands building those things. No human hand had anything to do with this guitar other than putting the strings on it. And maybe installing that. I know a little something about fabrication, manufacturing, composites, all that shit. Which is also, on a side note, take a little fucking cul-de-sac here. Well, I know that the whole recycling racket is nothing more than racketeering because, like, you know, polypropylene, polyurethane, polyester, mixed composite polyesters, polypropylene, polyesters, polypolys, they're all plastics. Polysetting, injection moulding, all that, they don't mix. You can't recycle them together. It doesn't work. None of those composites will mix together. That's why you need the right plastic filler rod for plastic welding. The wrong one will not work. Anybody that knows anything about plastic composites and fiberglass composites knows this. Anyway. But hey, the council don't want to talk about that.
That you suffer, meaning state violence that you suffer, mass incarceration that you suffer. I don't think that's a hard case to make, frankly, especially when you're talking about African Americans in America. Then you'll need for that diaspora community, whichever community you're talking about, they'll need to have some degree of organizational coherence, meaning you have to have some sort of recognized representation, representative organizations that are capable of formal engagement with BRICS members, member states, other countries, you know, some sort of institutional bodies that can carry out something that's more or less analogous to state-state diplomacy. You understand? And of course, you need the diaspora community would have to be big enough. You'd have to have sufficient population density to make it even worthwhile to deal with you. And then you want to put in some.
Well, a diaspora it's mainly allocated to Jews, but it is what it is a community living outside of their homeland. So, living outside of their governmental constraints. Pirate community, pirate economy, pirate governance. Governance of the people, by the people, for the people, in favour of the people.
Sort of a clause about how the diaspora community that's applying for the BRICS recognition isn't a separatist movement, you know. You can't be advocating the violent overthrow of the host country's government or something like that. You know, wanting to secede or have your own, you know, state. BRICS obviously doesn't want to be involved in anything that's overtly subversive or insurrectionist or anything like like that. But think about it. Applying for BRICS membership or trying to navigate something like this is a practical, non-rhetorical recognition of the fact that the colonial legacy doesn't only exist inside the formerly colonized countries, but it exists in the communities that were displaced from those countries, most likely due to war, due to economic sabotage, due to deindustrialization, and of course, obviously, because of the literal slave trade. You know, some people left their lands because the West extracted all their resources and left them in poverty. And then, of course, some other people, plenty of people left because they themselves were the resources that were being extracted. That deserves to be acknowledged, not just in speeches and not just in statements, but recognized and acknowledged in actual practical, real-world ways. Imagine this sort of a program. If you had something like this would be a kind of formal acknowledgement of shared global South identity to diaspora communities in America or in the West. You could maybe get access to BRICS cultural educational programs. You could get some sort of an observer status at the BRICS summits. I mean, inshallah, maybe even diaspora communities could even potentially get conditional access to loans for community development from the New Development Bank. You understand? If you have this kind of status, if you have this kind of status with BRICS, this kind of connection with BRICS, that would facilitate trade for community-owned businesses in your area with BRICS economies. There could be educational exchange programs with BRICS universities. You understand? Potentially, you could establish expedited pathways to citizenship, or anyway, permanent residency in BRICS nations, in BRICS member states. Your community could have direct engagement with BRICS foreign ministries. There's no reason why you can't do this. I mean, the potential benefits are absolutely massive. And obviously this could work not only for just the African American community, or not even just only with regards to America. I mean, if you think about North Africans, for example, in France, or the Pakistani, Bangladeshi community in the UK, you can think of plenty of other examples. I mean, the Palestinian diaspora, on and on. There's plenty of people who could benefit from something like this. That's practical morality. You're not just asking people to be good. You're trying to build systems that actually create safeguards for your...
You're starting to see why the Jewish community is so threatened by the Muslim community. Do you think maybe the Muslims are trying to help set us free? Do you think China might actually be trying to help set us free? All this propaganda we've been bombarded with. I'm just offering an alternative to try to get you to flick it on. You know? And over, pull it out, put it where it belongs, and use it. Instead of being full of shit. You're letting them fill you with shit, is what I'm trying to say. Like, I'm not saying that you're born full of shit like a liar. You're just believing the lies, which they're filling you full of shit. There is a pathway out of this, and it doesn't involve our government. It involves not engaging with it.
Against the bad behavior that exists by others. You're not waiting for bigots to stop being bigots. Like I said many, many times, you need parallel systems that will bypass the systems that oppress you. That's what real solutions look like. That's what real morality looks like applied in the real world. Your own sources of financing, your own supply chains, your own trade relationships, right? Your own community governance structures that you create yourself among each other, your own economic networks. See, this is what I mean by practical morality versus performative morality. Performative morality, that's protest signs and diversity statements and politicians making speeches about equality and justice and what have you. That's all theater. No, practical morality is actual institutions that actually work and that actually protect you and that actually create the conditions for you to flourish, regardless of what racists think. We're not concerned about reforming them. Because that's what you would be building if you were aiming at trying to get some sort of a BRICS recognition. Do you see what I mean? The objective itself, BRICS recognition, BRICS acceptance, that's less important than what you would build in the process of pursuing that goal. Every step towards that goal is a step towards economic sovereignty, is a step towards political autonomy and civilizational dignity. BRICS recognition would just be a coup de grace. But everything that you build on the path to that, everything that you build on the way to that, would constitute practical liberation already. Again, I've talked about this many times, I know. But look at the numbers. African Americans, if African Americans were considered as a separate economy, then that is an economy that generates somewhere between 1.6 to $2 trillion in economic activity every year. You understand? That's massive. That's larger than most countries' entire GDP. That's equivalent to Brazil, which is a founding member of BRICS. You have a massive economy already right now. But right now you're functioning like a colonized nation. You understand? You have economic activity, but you don't have economic sovereignty. You don't have economic control. You generate wealth, but you don't control the wealth that you generate. You participate in every single sector of the economy, mostly as labor and mostly as consumers, not as owners and not as decision makers. Your spending power is absolutely enormous, but it flows out of your communities into the hands of people who have no interest whatsoever in your well-being or the well-being of your community. Just like a colonized country. You understand? So you thought that your struggle was trying to gain acceptance in America, trying to end racism in America. No, your struggle is trying to liberate yourself from America. You are yourselves in an anti-colonial struggle, whether you know it or not. And no colonized country ever tried to gain the acceptance of their colonizers. They tried to get themselves out from under their colonizers. And that's what you should be doing. This is the only thing, in my opinion, that makes sense for African Americans or any other diaspora community from the global majority that's living in that country. That's the only thing that makes sense. If colonization was the ultimate version of offshoring, well, your communities represent the onshoring of colonization. And I don't think that it can even get any clearer than what we're seeing right now in America with ICE and so forth. You're literally having slave raids taking place across that country. So I'm saying, see yourself and your community as literally a colonized nation, as an occupied people. And every colonized country had pre-existing structures. They had pre-existing authority structures, governance structures, and so forth. And those continued in one form or another, even while the occupation existed. They operated beneath the imposed colonial governments. And these formed the foundation for their independence later on. And it helped them to struggle against the colonizers during the colonization. And that's what needs to be built, in my opinion, some semblance of that. You need some sort of unified economic governance. Right now, your economic activity, like I said, is fragmented across millions of individuals, across thousands and thousands of small businesses, with no coordination, with no unified strategy, no collective leverage. That's counterproductive. That's counter-liberation. You need to create some sort of a diaspora economic council. I've talked about it before. You can call it whatever you like. The name isn't important. The function is what's important. Have regional chapters across the country, advisory boards, and so forth. People with actual expertise in economics and law, international relations, and so forth. Every community has people like that. The point is to have some sort of a body, some sort of an institution that can speak with one voice about the economic interests of the community. This isn't a far-off dream. This is something that you can literally start organizing next month. Have community meetings, online coordination, and so forth. It's very easy to facilitate something like this. Build catalogs of businesses. Create databases of economic activity. Start the work of actually understanding your collective economic position. Get a full map of what your situation is. I'm sure that a great deal of this is already being done to one degree or another by different organizations in civil society. But these civil society organizations are not treated as, and maybe they don't see themselves as, or even maybe they don't behave as, anti-colonial institutions. This is a mindset recalibration that needs to take place. Look, I'm not advocating aggression. I'm not advocating hostility. But there's a big unspoken element in these community organizations that's getting lost, in my opinion, because it is unspoken. You know, in your mission statement, if you have an NGO of some form, your mission statement is to help the community, help the African American community, help this or that community, the so-called, any member of the so-called minority communities. You want everyone to know that you're there to help, right? That's what you have to say in your mission statement. But help against who? Help them against what? No, the fact of the matter is that you are living under aggression. You are living under hostility. You are living under persecution and bigotry. Conditions are being imposed, and you say that you want to help the people who are enduring those conditions, but you don't want to talk about who's imposing those conditions and that those conditions are being imposed. Do you understand me? There is an adversarial reality going on here. There's no two ways about it. You have to acknowledge this. You have to recognize this and act accordingly. Every organization that says that they're out there to help the community is, or should understand that it is, or should be treated as if it is, and they should behave as if it is, an anti-colonial revolutionary organization. In my opinion, there needs to be some urgency and some importance given to what they're doing. You know, if people are compiling a catalog of so-called minority-owned businesses, well, that's a chart of an anti-colonization network of economic sovereignty. You understand? This is important. It needs to be framed like this. It needs to be understood like this. In my opinion, this is very important, because if you don't understand it like this, then there's a danger that people will just fall into acting just like the same way that the oppressors do, the colonizers do. And they'll just use their community-owned status of their company as a technique for more extraction themselves and self-enrichment, instead of being part and parcel of a larger, broader, deeper community struggle for autonomy.
What do you think the Liebolds, Boseys, Guru Grahams and Bergwerths and stuff are about? Why do you think Bergwerth pushed so hard with his My Place thing to force it to happen? To force it. And why do you think they all stand around and call each other Freemasons? They're all Freemasons. Ha! There's nobody, like, do you not see that? It's hitting you in the face that hard. You got two black eyes and a broken nose. And this teeth of me, and I've got about 5. I think I've got 7. As you can see, I've got a tear all my food off with my gums. Who cares? What do you think they're up to? They're trying to capture a market for themselves, not for the people. That's why they're not making any ground. That's why they're all going backwards, waiting for something to happen. It's not going to happen. It's not happening. Who is Australia One Tasmania? I know who they are, and they're in Alveston. They used to have United in Waveney for a while. Because I'm pretty sure they still own a service station in West Alveston. I'll give you a hint. I don't think they realised who they were insulting when they was insulting me through emails. We're trying to save the country. Yeah, I haven't seen you go, because I actually know who you are. I haven't seen you go anywhere, do anything. You're full of shit. Seen you once, collecting money at West Park at a barbecue, and I was there. Used to be customers of mine when I had my panel beating shop. Ha!
So in my opinion, you need to start by registering and coordinating these community-owned businesses. Right now, there's no comprehensive registry that I know of. There may be. So nobody knows where they are, who they are, what sectors they're in, what they need, what they can provide to each other, and so forth. Create that registry. Make it possible for African American owned businesses or so-called minority owned businesses to find each other, to trade with each other, to support each other, to invest in each other. Build an actual ecosystem rather than isolated entities that are all just trying to survive. You know, survive separately in a hostile environment, because that's what you're in. You're in a hostile environment. Now, I don't actually know if a registry like this exists. It may. Alhamdulillah, I haven't been in the U.S. for over 20 years, but back in the day, there were only sort of localized versions of this, and only in specific sectors like restaurants and maybe mechanics and so forth. And then you should try to create investment funds. I've talked about it again before. Pool your resources. Now African American wealth is scattered and isolated. Like I say, individual families trying to build something with no support. You can pool your resources and combine that into some sort of a diaspora investment fund. Like I say, pool your resources. Make strategic investments in businesses in your community that serve the community interests. Finance the creation of institutions that you need yourself. Build that parallel infrastructure. And obviously, like I said, this is not only for the African American community, it's for any community. Any community can do this. Every community needs to do this because, yes, like I say, 90% of you are colonized by 10%. And that's something I've talked about many, many times. Community sovereignty, building sufficiency zones, establishing sufficiency zones, parallel structures, and so forth. And you can make sure that these funds, this community fund or what have you, it doesn't operate according to the same predatory financial system that you're currently trapped in. No interest-based exploitation. You can have equity partnerships where the risk is shared. You understand? Investment decisions being made based on community benefit, not just profit maximization. That can be determined by a committee, by a council. This is about trying to build something that actually works for you, not replicating the same extractive systems that have been bleeding you dry. And in the process of all this, you are building community institutional structures that you'll be able to utilize in the future. And yes, you can establish direct trade partnerships, trade relationships with the BRICS nations. You don't need BRICS recognition in order to do that. Like I said, your consumption power is enormous already. You're keeping entire industries solvent, but you have zero control over your own supply chains. Everything is mediated through American corporations that mark up the prices, that control the availability in the market, and they extract maximum profit while giving you the minimum value. It doesn't have to be like that. You can have direct relationships with Chinese manufacturers. There's no reason why you can't do that. Asian suppliers, African producers, Chinese manufacturers, like I say. Everything doesn't have to go through middlemen. There's no reason for that. I mean, I don't mean to repeat myself. I've said all of this before, but it does bear repeating. I think sometimes we need to hear ideas reiterated several times before they finally click. Pursuing BRICS membership, in my opinion, sort of forces you to think of yourselves as a nation that is connected to the rest of the world, not as a minority begging for inclusion, not as a demographic within someone else's country, but as a people with your own economic interests, with your own political aspirations, with your own civilizational heritage, and with your own collective destiny. That psychological shift is absolutely vital, and like I say, you're not going to get anywhere without it. Now, I know that you might be stuck on the idea of being an American. You might be stuck on that idea, especially because if you're African American, then your ancestors bled, and they sweated, and they built that country. Look, I'm not telling you to disavow what is your right. I'm telling you the practical way to get your right. And that's not going to be by buying into the bait and switch con job of citizenship, because that's what it is. You can't put your faith in the idea of trying to get your rights, your heritage rights, the legacy of what your ancestors earned. You can't put your faith in trying to get that from the same people who denied your ancestors those rights in the first place. The same government. You know, talking about your rights as a citizen and thinking it's going to be anything that you can cash in the bank. You can't cash that anywhere. Your citizenship, so-called. No, they didn't sweat and bleed for that country. They sweated and they bled for you. And that goes for every diaspora community, for every immigrant community, and so forth. Everyone who went over there did not...
Let's see him say that again. Right, we'll go back. What are we on? We'll go back to... about there.
What your ancestors earned, you can't put your faith in trying to get that from the same people who denied your ancestors those rights in the first place. The same government. You know? Talking about your rights as a citizen and thinking it's going to be anything that you can cash in the bank.
You know what you are? You want to know what you are? That's what you are. Right there. To the government, that's what you are. Look at that. Yeah, it's your reference number. There's your reference number to your citizenship. There's your barcode. Everybody. You shall not buy, trade or sell, lest ye have the mark of the beast. It's coming to a forest near you. That's your citizenship. Right there. So you see this one a little bit better. This one's not mine. Sorry to dox me, son, but you know, that one there is 1973. This one here is that a duplicate? The registration number. This document contains inbuilt security features. That's your citizenship. What ship? That one. That's not our Commonwealth. That's not our rightful Commonwealth constitutional. That's not our Royal Seal, people. That's not our Great Seal. So next time you hear them talk about royal commissions, who's royalty? What royalty? There's no royalty here. We don't get our royalties, do we, for our resources, minerals and assets and infrastructure that we pay for? That ends up getting milked from us, raped from us by foreign investors who get tax rebates for their lobby bribes. How can you cash your citizenship in at the bank when somebody else has got it? What do you think? Yeah. Where's my glasses? I certify this to be a copy of an entry in a register or record kept by me, given in pursuance of the Acts of Parliament of this state of Tasmania, this 13th of October 2006. Signed, E. and Owen. Who is E? Because the only name here says Anne Owen, delegate for Registrar of Births, Deaths and Marriages. Copies not valid unless certified. It's a copy. You don't get the original. You never get the original. Why? Because the original is lodged on the international exchange. The money that they estimate that you will earn in a lifetime, the resources that they will take from you, your 4 acres and a mule or whatever you want, and a bar of gold. When they say you're worth your weight in gold, they're not actually joking. They invest that on the international exchange.
You can't cash that anywhere. Your citizenship, so-called. No, they didn't sweat and bleed for that country. They sweated and they bled for you. And that goes for every diaspora community, for every immigrant community and so forth. Everyone who went over there did not go over there to make America great again. They went over there for their own children. They went over there for their families to try to secure a better life for themselves and their families than the misery that America and that the West had inflicted on them in their home countries. So you don't owe anything to that country. You owe it to yourself to make a better life for yourself, in spite of that country's determination to deny you a better life. And the way to make a better life for yourself and for your children and for your community is to recognize that you do have to do it on your own.
So what's that whole self-entitlement argument all about? It's not self-entitlement. That's being taken advantage of. You are entitled to something. Did you ask to be born? Did you ask to be registered? Did you ask for this? Did anyone ask for this? Did anybody ever really understand what they were doing when they were registering people? You are a registered commodity. They don't give a shit about you, just your meat wagon. What do you think they talk about, selling your soul? How can you sell your soul? You are the soul. This is just a meat wagon. It dies. You are the soul. You don't have a soul, you are the soul. What you see when you look at someone is the external, the visual self is just a meat wagon. It gets worn out and dies. Kind of like everything else in life, it dies, but the memory goes on, doesn't it? Everything is created, gets worn out, and dies. From furniture to cars to people to dogs to cats, trees, fish. But the memory lives on. Go and have a look in your photo album. What do you see? The memories. The soul connection. You don't see a meat wagon and miss a meat wagon. That's sins of the flesh. You miss the memories from those people, not what they look like. If I don't tell you this, no one else is going to. Are you going to listen to anyone anyway? Probably not.
Clear-eyed understanding that society is going to try to hinder you in every way possible at every turn. So you need to understand your community as a nation within a nation, as a colonized nation within a colonizing nation. You understand me? And you need to understand that your struggle is adversarial in nature. You're not in a struggle to join the system, you're in a struggle to separate from the system. And that's the key difference between this and the end racism approach. Because when you work to end racism and fail, which you will, you'll have nothing. You will have spent decades protesting, decades petitioning, decades voting and pleading, and you're still essentially in the same structural position that you were at the beginning, because none of that built you any actual power. None of those actions built you any actual power. But when you work to build economic sovereignty and build international relationships, even if you don't achieve the ultimate objective, you've built real things. You have institutions now. You have networks now. You have alternatives now. You have leverage now. You have reduced your dependency on systems and on people that hate you. That's a win. That's a practical strategy. That's practical morality. Like I said, you don't need pie in the sky. You need a bakery. Understand, everything that I'm telling you here rests on one fundamental premise. You have to see reality clearly. You have to see it clearly. You have to stop believing in fairy tales about American democracy and equal opportunity and believing in the eventual triumph of justice in America. You have to stop making your strategy dependent on racists having a moral awakening. America is what it is, and it always has been what it is, and it will continue to be what it is. The violence, the exploitation, the dehumanization, none of that represents a deviation. That's the normal operation of the system. I've said it many times. You need to build as if your survival depends on your own capabilities rather than upon their goodwill, because it does, and it always has. Capability is the only currency in that country, I'm telling you. You are not going to end racism in America, but what you can do by building, by connecting with the global south, by identifying as and operating as a diaspora community, by building cohesion, by building capability within your community, inshallah bi'idnillah, you can make the racists incapable of holding you down and holding you back. And that's the moral thing to do.
Yeah.
Okay, if there's one AI site.
Go away. Who cares about your AI bullshit? You're probably AI. I've got to stop telling bibs thinking that I'm putting up the most important and life-changing video you'll watch this year. It seems to be every day a better one comes up. Every other day I'm putting one together that makes the last one look like, okay, I could possibly rephrase all that and say this is the most important series of YouTube videos that you could possibly ever throw your eyes across. Take it in. I offer you nothing but truth. I offer you nothing but the way out of this problem. There's a book I'm about to show you. Now some people go, "Whoa, that looks alright," for the wrong reasons. Or the right reasons. Depends on which lens you view life through. And other people go, "Now that looks like something worth getting my hands on." This has so many ways there is so much in this book. You have no idea. There is so much in this book on how to become food sufficient. All the right organic fertilizers, all the different ways of growing things to have water. That's all hydroponics is, in a nutshell, is recycling water that generates its own good bacteria, filtered, that washes fertilizers and it creates its own composting if you do it properly. Look at that, growing out of a piece of polypipe with holes in it. In buckets, in drums, in terrariums. Look at that for a cool idea. Vertical growing. A foot pump. To pump the water up and then just let it run back down into the tub. Okay? How to grow vines, cucumbers, melons, silver beet, tomatoes, marijuana, carrots. This is, look at how much they got going on in here. There's a lot going on in there, saving an awful lot of space. These are things you can do on your patio, out on the veranda, in your apartment. Hey, Chills, seriously, honestly, hydroponics for everyone, a practical guide to gardening in the 21st century. Dr. Strawn K. Sutherland. Hang on. Glasses. You too can become a green-fingered wizard. A plant's basic requirements: plant food and nutrient solutions, support mediums. Types of hydroponic systems: what to grow, germinating seeds and planting out. Pest and disease control. Getting started, more complicated systems. Diagrams, tables, photographs, cartoons, and lists of hydroponic suppliers and societies. Hydroponics is for everyone. Whether you have a garden, a courtyard, a balcony, or simple access to a window, you can grow flowers, herbs and vegetables by hydroponics, and you don't even need a window. You can use artificial light to grow, example, herbs in your kitchen. Chels, I'm trying to help you out here, love. Hydroponics is simple. This is a dude, look at him, he looks pretty alright. Hydroponics is simple. This book examines clearly, with the help of diagrams and photographs, how setting up your own hydroponic unit need be no more complicated than growing pot plants in soil. In fact, it's much easier because you know exactly how much nutrient the plant is getting. Hydroponics does not require muscle. If you make a sensible choice of medium and system, you need lift nothing heavier than a medium-sized watering can. Hydroponics is ideal for children, pensioners, busy mums and dads because it practically eliminates stooping and weeding. If you follow a routine and don't forget to feed the plant, it practically guarantees superb results. So if you want to grow the most tasty and luscious vegetables, a constant supply of aromatic herbs and brilliantly coloured long-lasting flowers, try hydroponics in your home. And this is designed for Australia. Strawn Sutherland is well known in Australia for his work on animal toxins and, in particular, for the development of an anti-venom for Sydney funnel-web spiders. This is a pretty intelligent dude. Not so well known, perhaps, is his devotion to gardening. Not so much a hobby, more a way of life. 6 years ago, he became hooked on the sublime scent of hydroponics, and in this book he tells how you too can become a green-fingered horticultural wizard. You can get your hands on that book, right? If you can't grow food, herbal remedies, the amount of herbs, the amount of things that can be healed, that can keep people healthy, the herbs. If you can't grow food, you can always swap herbs for food. In a pirate economy, in a dead economy, in times of depression, recession, economic collapse, there's always something to trade with somebody who wants to trade. Corner yourself a commodity. Get a few people in on it, and you can all help each other out. This is what I'm talking about. Build community, build church. Pirate economy, pirate governance. You don't need the government. You don't need their money. Who knows? Maybe you can develop a product, a commodity in itself that you can trade with the BRICS nation, and start putting bricks in the bank. Start building a brick wall. It's like fiberglass. The only thing limiting you is your mind.